Regarding Twisted Metal 3 and 4, I think my reaction and many other people on the team is, what have you done with our baby?
You have to sort of understand the world of Twisted Metal to make a Twisted Metal game. But it was done like a 40-year-old trying to be cool.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Twisted Metal 4 released in 1999 for the PlayStation 1, and as the name would suggest, it is the fourth installment in the series, but is just the second and final game to be developed by 989 Studios. It also remains to this day the last numbered title in the series, with every subsequent entry taking the form of either a spin-off or a reboot, for better or worse. Twisted Metal 4 hit store shelves just 1 year after Twisted Metal 3, which means it is just as much the result of a horrifically rushed production as its predecessor was. A great indicator of an effective sequel is the refining, polishing, and iterating on what was meant to be accomplished in the original effort, and I would argue that some of that did take place with Twisted Metal 4.
Nice.
Even the reviews at the time reflect the improvements made by 989 Studios, as it received notably higher scores at Twisted Metal 3, with sites like GameSpot heaping relatively high praise onto it, saying that the leap from Twisted Metal 3 to 4 was as substantial as the jump from Twisted Metal 1 to 2. Although given the absolute hammering that Twisted Metal 3 was handed by those reviewers, they might as well be saying that getting windmill punched in the scrotum by Andre the Giant was markedly better the second time around because at least he didn't get a running start that time. It's not saying much is what I mean.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The reviews were still middling and the fans weren't impressed. It is hard to put much value into reviews from when something released, especially for something like Twisted Metal 4 that has had 24 years now to solidify its legacy and place in the gaming landscape. The opinions of some video game reviewer who may or may not even like Twisted Metal and who probably just crammed through their game in 3 settings are probably not the opinions that should be used to be the end-all be-all of Twisted Metal 4. At the time the 989 Twisted Metal games were new, they were almost universally shat upon, especially by those who were hardcore fans of the first 2 games. It was just the cool thing to do back then. But thankfully, in recent years, the narrative seems to have shifted as more and more brave folks come forward to express their love and appreciation for the games that 989 Studios put together. The game is still plenty shat on, but less so than it used to be. It turns out that there are loads of people whose fondest childhood memories came from Twisted Metal 4. Not me, though. I am not blinded by nostalgia when it comes to this game. The vast majority of my perception of this game has come in the last few years or so, which is why today I'll be diving into this game to see if it's still worth playing in 2023. And more importantly, if it deserves to wear the Twisted Metal name. Let's ask the question, is Twisted Metal 4 underrated and overhated?
Hi, I'm Melvin, Sweet Tooth's right-hand man. Get ready to rock.
Twisted Metal 4's plot centers around Sweet Tooth growing tired of being the mascot and star of the tournament, only to see all the real power go to Calypso. Why should Sweet Tooth concede himself to be the show pony, accepting just the scraps of the spoils that are only possible because of him? Sweet Tooth takes matters into his own hands, seizing the means of destruction from Calypso. In the most new metal edition of Undercover Boss, Calypso is cast from his office and overthrown by Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth then becomes the organizer of the tournament, while Calypso saddles up and competes for the first and only time in the series.
This is ridiculous, really. Twisted Metal is my tournament. It's my brainchild. It's mine. This will be proven soon enough, and I'll serve this same foul humiliation back to that crooked, collapsed cortex, criminally handicapped, overly made-up clown.
The history of the tournament is also vastly different from what was established in Twisted Metal 2, and more specifically the comic book, where the comic shows that Twisted Metal was the result of the devil giving Calypso supernatural powers in order to funnel more talented drivers into hell. Twisted Metal 4 details the origin of the contest as a 1900s circus caravan traveling the country, where one of its stops inspired a young Sweet Tooth to take up Twisted Metaling of his own. Quickly becoming the dominant competitor, Sweet Tooth wins, and his wish is to be the star of it all. Calypso grants his wish, which in some ways is the only time a Twisted Metal wish was ever true in real life, I guess, as Sweet Tooth remains the most recognizable and iconic character this series has ever spawned.
Oh Jesus, when I saw the Sweet Tooth character design for 3 and then 4, which was worth, I mean, he looked like a Carney Barker with these stupid neon purple pants, and it's like, what is this?
That fame and stardom was not enough to satisfy the clown, though, and after long, Sweet Tooth completes his overthrow of Calypso by stealing his ring, which is shown to be the source of his power, or something.
I don't know.
989 Studios were still using their in-house engine for this game, but with another development cycle to further fit it into the shape of a Twisted Metal game. The controls are tighter, the graphics and presentation are noticeably improved, and the AI are even better than in Twisted Metal 3, which were a bright spot in what was otherwise considered a mess of inconsistent quality by many players. Just about every character in Twisted Metal 4 is new, and the ones that return are dramatically different. Returning characters include Mr. Grimm, who is now known as Captain, and no longer the actual Grim Reaper, but a pirate.
minute. Who are you?
Warthog is now known as General Warthog, but otherwise shares the military affectations of the other Warthog appearances. Axel, Augur, Slam, and Minion all appear and are playable here, but only as boss characters and feature no story or bio information. New characters include Quattro, the store brand Robocop, who just wants to take down the Twisted Metal tournament. Pizza Boy, the store brand M&M, who just wants a souped up ride, homie.
Step up and frown while I hearty hard grin it, yeah.
Orbital, the store brand James Bond, whose face was burned and he just wants to be normal again.
All I want is to be like everyone else.
Goggle Eyes, the store brand Dale Gribble, who hates bugs. His wish is for bugs to go away.
I live to exterminate the pests.
Meter Maid, the store brand Bunny from Zootopia, who just wants to get close enough to Sweet Tooth so she can give him a parking ticket.
I have a little surprise for Sweet Tooth I'd like to deliver to him personally.
Microblast, the store brand Leprechaun, who just wants to be big. Trashman, the store brand Danny DeVito, who wants the world to be filled with garbage, which might be more true than he thought ever since Twitter's been around.
Trash is my kingdom!
The Joneses, the store brand family from National Lampoon, who wants a new RV.
You probably need to stay with you a little while till we, move on and visit someone else.
Drag Queen, look, I'm not touching this one. I am not the person who knows the right way to approach this.
You know I'd be more than happy to open up a fresh can of whoop-ass on some unsuspecting contestants!
Mr. Zombie, the actual Rob Zombie who just wants to play a little song for us.
He writes the songs. He writes the songs.
The overall design for Twisted Metal 4 is solid, but arenas do not take place in real-world locations like in the previous 3 games. Instead, doing what Black would do with generic locales, such as a junkyard, a futuristic city, and even a carnival. Levels are more interesting to look at and feature more dynamic elements and environmental attacks. So, let's finally get into what it's like playing this game in 2023.
Let's go.
Opening the game, we are greeted by the intro cinematic, detailing the inspiring story of Sweet Tooth's meteoric rise to fame. It's not quite the transcendently amazing movie that Twisted Metal 3 starts with, but it's not far off. We get to see some pretty rockin' action scenes, as well as Sweet Tooth hitting a jaunty strut as he and his army of Melvins throw Calypso out of a window. The main menu is also one of the more detailed and interesting ones in the series. Of course, nothing can touch the incredible diorama of Twisted Metal Black, but this game is pretty great. So without much fuss or fanfare, I just dove headfirst into the tournament, with my warrior of choice this time being Goggle Eyes, because if there's anyone you want fighting on your side, it's Dale Gribble.
What's wrong with me?
His special is a green toxic gas that effectively acts like a flamethrower with food coloring.
Got it! Yo me $5.
If it makes it more fun, you can assume that the giant roach on top of the van is a mutated Fallout monster vomiting acid onto opponents. You can do that too. Oh yeah, there is a giant roach on top of the van, which will serve as our little buddy throughout the run. Because even though I chose to go without a CPU ally, that doesn't mean we can't make a few friends along the way. So everyone, say hello to Cocky the Cockroach. He has something to say.
Subscribe to Drew Desidu, or else my people will descend on Earth and claim your oceans, salt your fields, and swallow the sun. Beware.
That's horrifying, Cocky. Thank you for the shout-out. Anyways, with our van cockeyed and loaded, we stormed the battlefield of the construction yard, and I discovered very quickly that the controls take a bit of getting used to. This is the first and only game in the series to not use the square button as the gas. Instead, the X button is mapped there, and square is used for tight turn. The physics also immediately made their presence known, with the constant rolling over from Twisted Metal 3 being fixed. Or at least it was made less frustrating, as cars will instantly pop back upright if they are upside down. I used my special to great effect, as it does very good damage, with the only real downside being that I have to keep the enemy in the fume jet for a few seconds to get the full output of damage. But as long as I can throw around enough pocket sand, freeze missiles, that shouldn't be much of a problem. One thing that this game needs to be shouted out for is the availability of weapons. They are everywhere. There are very few times throughout my entire playthrough where I didn't have at least a few decent weapons to deploy against my opponents. Say what you want about Sweet Tooth, but he knows how to throw a proper Twisted Metal tournament. Not only that, but the weapons are all very useful, which can't be said for Twisted Metal 3. Even the weapons that were once useless wastes of inventory slots, like the rain missile and napalm, are now mediocre doers of damage, which is a upgrade. The map itself, Construction Yard, is well designed and interesting to look at, as are the majority of the levels in this game. It features a center hub area with a crane that can be used, surrounded by 4 areas that offer plenty of varied and fun spaces to explore and missile punch enemies into submission. This game has a surprisingly smooth and fast pace, at least when the frame rate isn't chugging. It doesn't feel nearly as clunky and frustrating as Twisted Metal 2, the greatest car combat game to ever release on this earth.
Ah! Oh man,
Dale, you went too far!
The first level starts you off with just 3 opponents, something to help ease players into the wide, wacky world of Twisted Metal. The enemies I pulled this time were Orbital, Microblast, and Meteor Maid, which are all the most zippy, tiny, and hard-to-hit vehicles in the game. My fumbling Roachmobile struggled to keep up with them as they did circles around me, but through sheer willpower and the relentless bloodlust brought on by the unprotected exposure to Cocky, I found a way to turn Microblast into Mega Blast by using a mortar that is somehow not completely useless like it was in Twisted Metal 3. Him and his stupid laugh will have a fun ride to hell. I peppered the battlefield with wayward napalm that set ablaze the ground for which we fought, granting no space of safety or refuge for little Orbital as they sped across the arena. They drove directly into my napalm, exploding as Cocky's flames claim another poor soul. This left just Meteor Maid in her teeny little golf cart. Despite how unimpressive and laughable her car really is, it is a surprisingly huge pain in the dingus to try to fight. The microscopic hitbox has scientists baffled to this day how it's possible to fit an entire human being inside a golf cart the size of an atom. My only hope to take her out is to deploy my pocket sand with reckless abandon. At one point, I needed help.
I can't die on my first mission. It's bad for business.
Then found some among the pools of acid, but with Meteor Maid giving chase, I made my way up the ramp to the health pickup and just bounced her away with the utmost disrespect.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
As with anything cool that I do, I followed it up with something painfully uncool. I failed to drive in a straight line to get the health pickup and instead just got stuck on the geometry, requiring me to take the drive of shame to go back up the ramp in the dumbest way possible, before finally getting the health. With Meteor Maid now fully convinced that I might be a deeply incompetent competitor, she showed a bit of mercy and pity by allowing my pocket sand to connect multiple times, where I just spammed fire missiles into her dinky box until she erupted in flames. With Meteor Maid taken out, this begins the first of many boss battles in this game. In the tournament mode, every stage is punctuated by a boss battle. It sort of acts as the regeneration mechanic from Twisted Metal 3, only with the unique character clomping in at the end instead of just more standard roster fodder. In either case, it's clear that it's just there to pad the length of the tournament. But it is a welcome improvement since most of the bosses are at least interesting to look at and suit their environments well. Our first boss is Crusher, a construction vehicle that more closely resembles someone who was forced to draw Pac-Man with their feet while drunk than an actual menacing boss. But it is the first level, so I'll give it a pass. Now on to the second level, Neon City. A cyberpunk-style urban landscape that offers, in my opinion, the most visually intriguing design in the entire game. I'm also a sucker for the cyberpunk, dark, neon, future style, and with the way the frame rate in this game absolutely chugged when you have the audacity to be around any more than one opponent, it really does give you the full Cyberpunk 2077 experience. Unnecessary roasts of one of my favorite games aside, I finally started to get a little more comfortable with the feel and control of this game. With jets of fire bellowing from Cocky's assholes, I sped around the map cleaning house on Trashman, whose adorable little grabby arms flail away at air as I pelt him with fire missiles. Quattro also went cruising for a bruising as my power missiles made point-blank contact with his wimpy little space bike. I found myself face-to-face with Meteor Maid yet again, who would continue their reign of terror over me and my weapons that failed to understand how a vehicle could be that small and nimble.
Cocky won't forget that.
It took a Herculean effort of pocket sand mastery to corral her long enough to blow her up, but eventually I did with a heap of ricochets and hope. With the regular enemies taken out, that leaves us just one-on-one with the level's boss, Moonbuggy, a caterpillar with 6 wheels and an ass to be kicked. This boss battle was fairly trivial given that this game gave me more weapons than I know what to do with, and they made Moonbuggy a pathetically clumsy opponent. So, now on to what is arguably the worst map in the game, Road Rage. It is extremely similar to the Freeway Free-For-All level in Twisted Metal 1, but with many more useless winding paths to get lost in. Finding enemies here is the biggest challenge it has to offer, because unless you have spent thousands of hours studying this map, it will play like you're stuck in a spaghetti bowl with a bunch of high-explosive meatballs. The only thing worth remembering on this level are the neat boost pads that launch your car down the road at speeds that this van was never meant to go. Cocky enjoyed themselves though, which is good because I don't think our planet can handle a displeased Cocky.
No, you cannot.
I discarded the opponents with ease, as long as I can find them. For the majority of this fight, I was just puttering along down the empty streets with only Cocky, my thoughts, and the weird fart engine of this van. The homing weapons in this game are just as bad as they were in Twisted Metal 3, if not a little worse, since the vehicles in this game feel smaller and more compact than those found in Twisted Metal Triple. Freeze missiles do a great job of at least staying within the same hemisphere as the enemy it's targeting, but often slip around them when it comes to actually making contact. But when they do land, these enemies quickly become guinea pigs for my new experimental forms of ass-kicking. After about 80 years of wandering the streets of Road Rage, I managed to remove from existence my enemies who roam like ghosts through these winding rivers of asphalt. Trashman, while he rumbles around as a hulking mass of metal and grabby arms, is woefully under-equipped to take on a being like Goggle Eyes. His big, shiny metal ass just makes him an easier target. For this arena name of the boss is Super Thumper, and if you're wondering aloud what makes him super,
why don't you mind your own business, pal?
The answer is a second flamethrower, as all problems can be solved by inserting more flamethrowers. If a problem persists, consult your local flamethrower and flamethrower accessory store, as you probably don't have enough flamethrowers.
Okay!
This was true of Super Thumper, because he just kinda stood there harmlessly as I melted him with the true thrower of flame. So as you can see, he probably could have used another flamethrower. Next, like all worthwhile journeys, takes us to the bedroom, which I can only assume is Sweet Tooth's bedroom. The posters along the wall show character art from Twisted Metal 3, including one of Sweet Tooth, but his version from the last game, which he doesn't even look like anymore, so I don't know. This map is colorful and well laid out, with a ton of great areas to explore. The map does show off a bit of the darker, more edgy tones this game has to offer, with bloody handprints and the word die scrawled in what appears to be blood on the walls. Twisted Metal is truly at its best tonally in the PS1 era when it can juxtapose the dark with the whimsical, and this level nails that. I did a rousing round of remote explosive jousting with Meter Maid because I refused to fight her with anything that has to actually be aimed. Mr. Zombie put up little resistance as I just dissolved him in my green acid goo, despite the best efforts of its special.
Cocky cannot be contained.
Leaving just the Joneses left, who proved themselves momentarily as worthy competitors, but that only made the vanquishing of 4 souls related in blood and brought forth by greed all the better. They perished in the view of Cocky.
The highest honor a warrior may find.
The boss here is RC Car, and is an absolute pain in the old diarrhea launcher. It's this little wannabe van with a giant f***off laser strapped to the roof. Truly, the only thing that should be rightly placed on top of a van's roof is a monument to Cocky.
We'd all love to make time for roaches.
This laser nonsense is just mans pulling down of their pants to reveal not a dick, not a balls, but disgraceful hubris. Also, RC Car did kill me for the first time of this entire tournament so far.
It's just you and me now. 10 years ago, you took my shit. Did you think I'd forget that?
Next is Amazonia 3000 BC, which seems to gleefully gloss over the fact that we have all achieved time travel, only to just blow each other up for 8 minutes and then go back to the present day. Perhaps this game is warning us that war, truly, never changes. This level features an insane 6 enemies to battle, which is honestly a pretty awesome arena. It offers a great variety of areas with wide open sections on either corner that give way to a lower part with tight alleyways. In the center is a giant pyramid with the most powerful weapons and a full health that is only accessible by demonstrating some sick parkour skill by leaping across the platforms to the teleporter. With the sheer volume of weapons that each of these maps has to offer at any given time, it's hard not to have a tool of destruction to fight with. It really brings that pace of combat up dramatically from where it was in Twisted Metal 3. I always have something to use to do damage, which is saying a lot for me as someone who is cartoonishly bad at these games and refuses to gather weapons.
Because all I want to do is hunt.
With enemies like Grim, Quattro, Orbital, Mr. Zombie, and the previously mentioned adorably useless Trash Man, it's not hard to see why I sliced through the competition like Cocky's gaze through the souls of his dissenters. The only opponents that provided any challenge whatsoever was Calypso, only really due to their high amount of armor as they could absorb punishment like SpongeBob at a BDSM dungeon. Cocky's breath spread itself among the ancient ground of Amazonia 3000 BC, and all fell before him like good little subjects. I even scored a nice triple kill to bring us to the boss fight against Super Axel.
Oh, baby, a triple!
Who finds himself fully plated in metal with the added bonus of spikes jutting out from his wheels, which would imply that his wish to be one complete machine from Twisted Metal 3 was granted without issue. Good for him, I guess. He is actually really tough and kind of an ass. He channeled his inner Twisted Metal 2 and just relentlessly spammed freeze after freeze with a ridiculous amount of Axel power thrown in for good measure.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
He remembered that these games are supposed to be fun, something that TM2 never learned, and actually let me move around and play the game. I used his mercy against him and delivered an ass kicking that will ring out through history by clumsily falling into a pit of acid and shooting power missiles at him before he could completely dominate me. So now we march ever onward in our Twisted Metal 4 quest. This time we are on the oil rig, a massive structure built on the sea to extract black gold from the depths of our beautiful earth so that we can suffocate ourselves with it. Or whatever Flower Power would say about this map. She's not here, so we're left with just blowing each other up with our machines of war and pollution. We battle on these platforms against just 5 opponents, including a couple of characters we haven't really seen much of yet, like Drag Queen and General Warthog, whose most notable trait is their insistence on humping the air with machine-like precision. Trashman fumbled towards me with arms arms flailing as I struggled to get away. He grabbed me, and not even Cocky could keep the game from pooping its pants. It's no wonder that Twisted Metal has never featured a train on this roster, because this game was hogging up all the chugging. I camped atop the helipad. I also tried to time a remote bomb so that enemies trying to join me up there would be forced into the water below. It almost worked with Trashman, but he managed to stay aboard,
I'm trying to kill you!
which only made his destruction more personal. I gave up waiting for the opponents to attempt to mount the helipad and just decided to hunt them down myself, because Cocky requires a blood sacrifice every 90 seconds or so, or he gets cranky. I did a couple of cool tricks to try to impress Cocky, but his only way of expressing joy or affirmation are the plumes of fire out of his ass. I'm still trying to find out what that means, so I'll just have to assume he enjoyed my sick barrel roll. The boss battle here includes a duo comprised of Super Augur and Super Slam, who are equally annoying to be stuck in a room with. I went back to the safety of the helipad only to have Super Augur impale me with his spiky spin dick and throw me into oblivion. Luckily, this game has hyperspace and I know how to use it. After a few minutes of comboing my pocket sand with whatever weapons I happen to have equipped at that moment, I made quick work of the construction tandem, because Cocky only has respect for construction equipment that are tasked with building monuments to his greatness. Now we enter what is probably my least favorite map in the entire series, Minion's Maze. It is a level purposely designed to drive any mere mortal into insanity. The paths are winding and undifferentiated. The enemies are nowhere to be found. Like ghosts, they appear only in the corner of your eye before evaporating back into the ether. The only worthwhile part of this level is the portal minigame you can play where you drive in a straight line as the teleporters keep you in a loop. Fun, I guess. Anyways, I found a lightning pickup and used an exploit that allows you to infinitely fire whatever weapon you last had equipped if your inventory is empty and you use the rear fire command. This deleted the enemies with ease, and their screams were music to Cocky's antennas. Now moving on to the final leg of our Twisted Metal 4 adventure, the Carnival, Sweet Tooth's HQ, where I had to fight 6 enemies along with Sweet Tooth himself, who can somehow grant a wish after I launch him into low Earth orbit. I was taken out for the second time in the entire playthrough by a random jet of fire because Sweet Tooth understands the key to problem solving is more flamethrowers. I wandered into a spooky ghost house, and before I can poop my pants in shivering fear, I scored a nice double kill on Quattro and Pizza Boy. I tried to send Meter Maid into space so that Sweet Tooth would have a friend up there, a friend that would give him a mountain of parking tickets or whatever, but it failed. No matter, with ease I crushed the remaining opponents and waited for my battle against Sweet Tooth. He is going to space. He will slip the surly bonds of Earth and touch the face of God. With my proximity mines in place, I waited and waited and waited until finally the clown showed his dumb face and learned what it means to be in the presence of Cocky. With one final death scream, we were done. Now with Dale Gribble granted an audience with Melvin, Dale Gribble's wish that every bug on Earth be rid of. He wants them all in one place so that he can stop them, but no one can stop Cocky and his army.
No one.
Anyways, the 99 Studios games were looked down upon by Twisted Metal purists, but if this playthrough has taught me anything, it's that Twisted Metal 4 is a fantastic entry from a gameplay perspective. And even though the stories and tone don't reach the heights of Twisted Metal 2 or Black or whatever, they are still fun and wacky and silly, and why is that a bad thing? These games may not impress the 1% of gamers whose sole point of pride is how hard they can beat their head against a wall to play Twisted Metal 2 with any success, but they impress me with their fun, engaging, dumb charm. I don't get why Twisted Metal 4 gets all the hate. This game's great. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day.